Good evening everybody. Quite some time ago now I posted a video about why I didn't like university. So if you'd like to know the backstory of why I personally was not a fan of my uni experience, I will link that video for you to have a little gander at. The response to that video was bittersweet for me because so many people really resonated with my personal story. They said they were either went through a similar thing at uni and didn't tell anyone because they were embarrassed, or they are going through a similar thing, they're in first year and they freaking hate it, or I don't know, they can't stand their flatmates. I didn't have that problem, thank the Lord, like that would have really been the icing on the cake. But a lot of people just didn't like it either, and for similar reasons. And I feel like, even though that was a bit of a negative Nelly video, hopefully I can make this one into more of a positive video, because I'm an introvert and I think a lot of people that contacted me, they mentioned that they were quite shy and introverted as well. Obviously introverted doesn't necessarily mean shy, I am very aware of that. But yeah, some people sent in some questions. I am hopefully going to give some words of pearly wisdom, and I thought at the same time, to keep things fun and fresh and interesting, because this is a makeup channel after all, I would test these MOTD brushes. I really kindly got sent these by Makeup of Bugger. It's got hair on it. Lovely. Makeup of the day, and I thought I would test these on camera. As you can see, I haven't got any eye makeup on. Disclaimer, I'm aware. Haven't done my brows or my eye makeup. Yeah, I thought I'd pop some eyeshadow on my eyelids. This is the Essential Matte and Shimmer Eyeshadow Palette by Jouer. I've been using this loads recently, so I'm going to go ahead and take the brow brush. Brow Chicka Wow. I actually just ordered one of these double-ended brushes from e.l.f. So that's annoying. Now I've got two, but oh well. There are definitely worse problems to have. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do my brows and answer a question. So the first question is, what decisions would you have made differently knowing what you do now? Did you regret much? I mean, in terms of decisions I would make differently, I would probably have gone to a different uni, to be completely honest. Although I do, like I mentioned in my last video, still really like Nottingham. I think it's a great city, especially if you're vegan. It had really good vegan cafes, it had really good venues in terms of like music venues. But I think it's at the back of my mind, I think Brighton might have been a better location for me. I just feel like it's more kind of my vibe. I'm moving on to the Build and Blend now, and I'm just going to set my eyelids with this yellow shade. The only reason I really chose Nottingham was because it was the only uni I'd been to go see. And I only went to go see it because my friend was going. She said, "Do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Sure." And so I ended up just putting that as my first choice and ended up going there. But yeah, I probably would have looked at going to a different uni, but it's so easy to say in retrospect. I could have gone to the University of Sussex and absolutely hated it, like you just don't know. So I don't have any regrets at all. I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that you can take good out of everything that happens, even if you're having a bit of a crummy time. Like, it will probably make you grow in a way that it will benefit you in later life. Sometimes the universe gives you what you need, not what you want. Ain't that the truth? The next question has two parts. So the first part is, any advice on dealing with homesickness or missing your pets? I have a lovely cat named Callisto that I'll be missing very much. I feel that. And the second part of the question is, how often do you believe one should visit home? There seems to be quite a variation in opinions regarding students visiting home. That is actually so true about visiting home. Some people have really strong opinions that you shouldn't come home like in the first few months of being at uni, and whilst I do agree that you should give yourself some time to settle in, because it's going to be an overwhelming situation anyway, like regardless if you're an introvert or an extrovert, it's a weird situation to be in. It's a big lifestyle change to be suddenly surrounded by all these people with like no parents or no like rules or like curfew. But I would just say go with your gut. Like, if you feel like you need to come home every other month, go home every other month. Like, I don't know, for me personally, I had to come home every month to get my to do a pregnancy test for this Roaccutane stuff I was on for my acne, which I mentioned in my other video. If that's confusing, then like I say, I explained it in my other video. That was cool because it meant like once a month I could come home, and it was something to look forward to when I didn't have any friends at uni. But even if you don't have that excuse, just go with your gut, go with your instinct, and don't try and prove a point to people that you can stay away from home. Like, I feel like if people are going to judge you on that, that's more of a reflection of them than of you. Like, if you want to see your family, you want to see your family, because everybody's different, and that's why uni isn't technically suitable for everyone. Am I right, kids? But in terms of the other part of your question, homesickness and pet sickness, I didn't really get homesick, I'm not gonna lie, but I definitely missed my cat. I feel like it's just something about having an animal around that is so soothing and comforting. I mean, obviously, because that's probably why we have pets. Psychologically, it's because it's a big comfort for a lot of people. But I would just say, stock up on pictures on your phone, stock up on videos. Oh god, I have so many pictures of Finn on my phone. I've even got a music video. I made a music video, which I probably can't insert into this video because I'm not that technically able. But I think it's on my Instagram, so if you want to see a music video I made of my cat, that was a slow day. I've actually moved on to two blending brushes, the Build and Blend and the Seamless Sheer Blend. and they feel nice and soft. They're not as soft as my 100% pure crease brush, aka the holy grail of all crease brushes, the best blending brush in the goddamn world, that again I've never heard anybody talk about. In fact, I've never seen anybody use an 100% pure brush in any video ever. They're an American brand if you don't know, and I used to be obsessed with them. They've got so many vegan options, they're cruelty free, a lot of their stuff is mostly natural, but yeah, these are still pretty soft. I'm going to take those same shades that I took into my crease with a smudger brush. There's something about a smudger brush that really gets me, and this one is a bit fluffier than my regular smudger brush. Nice and soft, but yeah, it is a bit thicker. The usual culprit that I do my makeup with is this one, the Zoeva 226 smudger, and as you can see it's a little bit thinner, but it's still really soft. I don't think this is going to be as good as my smudger, but you know. Another person asks what to do if you haven't made friends in first year. I would say firstly, don't panic. I feel like the more pressure you put on making friends, the less likely it's going to happen like naturally, and I feel like the best way obviously to make friends is when it comes natural to you, because that's when you know it's right. Obviously first year is technically probably the easiest time to make friends, just because everybody is like mostly in the same boat. Everybody's new to everyone, everybody's trying to make as many friends as possible. You also have freshers, which I personally never really got freshers. Like, I don't really get how you're supposed to make friends with people when you can't really talk to them, aka in the club. But I get that, yeah, it's a lot of people's gig. People like to get lit. Go to Prism in Nottingham, Oceana, Ocean. Oh my god. My advice if you haven't made friends in first year is to join societies, because societies are a great way to obviously meet like-minded people. If you don't know what a society is, it's basically where people who have a similar interests like football, basketball, doesn't have to be sport, could be like knitting, books, art, anything. I think Nottingham had the most societies out of every uni in the UK. I don't know if that was an urban legend, but I heard that. So I'd recommend joining societies and going along to some meetings, and you might meet people that way. Also consider the people who are going to go to that society meeting. For example, I signed up to so many. In second year I was like, right, this is my year. I'm going to make so many friends this year. I'm going to join all the societies. I spent about £40 on membership fees and sign up fees, and I went to about I think 3. Sustainability Society I went to, and I was on the committee in third year, but in second year I just went to the sessions. Blogsock I was on the committee for. Highly recommend if you want to. It looks great on your CV, but see if you can get on the committee for a society, because then if you're an introvert and you're not so ballsy like, oh, let's meet up, let's go for coffee, let's go to the cinema, when you have to meet up for meetings to organise, because if you're on the committee you're like the president, the treasurer, I was head of social media. We also had an events manager, so you organise the events and the things that the society will do, but it means you're forced to be together, and it's just so much easier to make friends. And I love the girls on the Blogsock committee, genuinely one of the best things to come out of uni. They were all pretty busy, so it's not like we were super close friends, but yeah, it was nice to have that social interaction for me personally. But yeah, back to my example. So Sustainability Society, people were lovely. Blogsock, people were lovely. A little bit quiet, but like really nice. You know, those kind of people that are kind of quiet, and then when you get talking to them, like, you're like, ah, we are one and the same. But I also joined High Society, which was not about getting high, it was about alternative music. So it was kind of across the board. It was like post-punk, also indie, which is kind of what I was into, indie alternative rock, rock pop, all that jazz, but you know, any alternative music basically. And I went to maybe like 2 of their events, and they were so intimidating. They were so, you know, people who were really into like cool music, like, oh, you wouldn't have heard of this band, but like I'm really into them, and I've got their like logo tattooed on my elbow. Stick and Poke. Is that what it's called? Stick and Poke? Yeah, so you've got to kind of think about who is going to be going along to those sessions, and then I feel like that way you're going to get your mindset into the place of, I'm going to make friends with these people because we're probably going to be like-minded, you know? I'm going to take the Come Through contour brush, which is like an angled contour brush, and just take some of the darker browns and see if I can deepen up the outer crease a little bit. But yeah, if you don't really have that many societies at uni, you could just post, like if you're a blogger, or if you're into Instagram, or if you're like cruelty free and vegan stuff, maybe just check out your local bloggers. Maybe put a tweet out and say, would anybody be up for going for a coffee, or like having a bloggers coffee meet? How many classes did you take each year? I'm taking 2 right now because of financial reasons, and I feel like I'm behind. I'm guessing this is from someone who is an American, because we don't really call them classes, we have modules. So obviously my degree, did I even say what my degree was? It was business. I think it was about like 6 modules a term. I was going to put this colour pigment on my eye. It's by Peony, and it's the Chameleon Powder Pigment in the shade White Lie. I actually don't feel like it will work because it's pretty much the same colour as what I've got in my crease. So I'm going to put the Pixie Fairy Lights on my eyelid. I'm sorry, I know I use them all the time, but I genuinely love them. Lots of my units and lectures are online this summer, and I really struggle to learn and retain information when it's just from a video and not an in-person lecture or a book. Have you got any tips for how to study from online content / video? Why yes, my friend. Yes, I do. I have a secret that I'm going to let you in on. The best purchase of my life, and I'm not even exaggerating. I still use it to this day. Can you guess what it is? My whiteboard. I love my whiteboard so much. Best £4 I've ever spent. I struggle with anybody talking at me to take in that information. Like from a book, and when I can write it out, I can process that fine. But when someone's talking at me, even like now, if somebody is just telling me information, I have to concentrate. So I have to concentrate on concentrating to take in the information. It's not natural for me. So I feel like we're maybe on the same wavelength here. But what I would do is I would listen to maybe 30 seconds of a lecture if it's online on my computer, then pause it, then I would write out, or as they're speaking, write things out on your whiteboard, condense that into shorter notes. I would then make notes into my notebook from those notes, and then I would wipe everything off the whiteboard and try and teach it to someone. So that like 30-second clip, I would try and pretend that I was the lecturer. I was you know, literally talking to a brick wall. I would pretend to teach it, and then I feel like once you can teach a topic, you know the topic. So that's just how my brain personally processes it, but I highly recommend it. Give it a go. Curl them lashes. Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough for uni? If so, how did you cope? Yeah, I never felt like I was clever enough, but I feel like that's because in a lecture, you don't really know if everybody else gets it as well. So like if you're sat there lost in a lecture, guarantee there's at least a handful of people who are probably also lost in a lecture. And it is a horrible feeling, feeling stupid. That is probably one of the worst feelings ever, just feeling like everybody else gets it. You've just got to say to yourself, like, I got the grades to get here, like I am into, like, just reassure yourself that if you weren't supposed to be there, you wouldn't be there. And also if you're struggling, guarantee there are other people struggling. Like, the worst thing you can do, and I am not one to preach this because I do it all the time, is struggle in silence. Like when I feel like I don't get what's going on, I try and do it on my own. Just ask someone, ask your professor, like I'll organise a meeting. If you're behind, organise a meeting, and they want to help you most of the time. Most of them, I can't speak for all professors, but most lecturers want you to get a good grade because it reflects well on them. Frickety flip, look at my lashes. What's the best class you took at university? I'm pretty much done with my makeup now, so I'm just going to finish the last few questions. My favourite, I had a couple. Firstly, brands and advertising. I think I've answered this in another Q&A before because it definitely rings a bell. But brands and advertising was really interesting because we learnt about the psychology of advertising, learnt about brands, obviously brand houses, the ASA guidelines, so like the CAP code and all that jazz, which is basically like the Advertising Standards Authority. They control, you know, like when you see hashtag ad on an Instagram post, like that's because they say it has to be there. And like the rules are changing all the time, but that was interesting to know about. But part of the reason why I loved his lectures so much was because he firmly believed that lectures were for listening. Lectures were not for participating, which I totally agree with. You know those lecturers that just try and get people involved, and they'll ask questions and there'll be a good half a minute of silence and it will just waste time. He was not like that at all. He was a really, really good teacher, but he said like, I'm more than happy to help you outside of a lecture hour. Like, come to me at the end, you know, we can have a meeting, email me, whatever, I will help you, but don't ask questions in a lecture because it's just going to waste everyone's time, and like we all just want to hear the information. Got some like repeats of questions, like ever regret going into it? No, I don't, like I mentioned, but they also go on to say, as in thinking you could have worked in a field of your choosing without having a degree. Not really, because in my gap year I did look at lots of jobs, and most of them, not only do they require a degree, and I'm not dismissing that there are other ways to get a degree, like you can go into an apprenticeship, there are loads of ways to still study and learn and get a qualification without going to uni, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I feel like not only do they want a degree, they also want experience, and I think in the long term it will benefit me, and I did learn a lot, so I don't necessarily regret it. How do you keep organised and stay motivated? I don't. I am probably the least organised, and I'm not the least organised, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not super organised, I'm not unorganised, but I'm not very motivated. I have so many ideas and I just don't get them onto paper, and especially at uni, like I would start every term being like, this is my year. I'd pick up new stationery, I'd get a fresh notebook, I would go to my first 9 AM of the semester, and then the next week it would just fall apart. Like, I do find it so hard. I would say like my only advice would be to try and get into a routine, which I found really hard at uni because I didn't have any friends. I had like one course friend who was so sweet, really nice, but we saw each other like 2 or 3 times a week, you know, and it's not, when you don't have people to be held accountable with, it's hard to it is difficult to motivate yourself. Like, I'm not very self-motivated at all, so you're asking the wrong person, to be honest. There are loads of YouTube videos on how to stay motivated, but I've realised that most of them involve drinking lemon water, getting up at like 5:15 every day. Would you recommend staying at home and going to university or staying in halls? It depends on where you go to uni, to be honest. I don't think it's a bad thing to stay at home. Like, obviously you save so much money, it's cool to see your family, you can probably get cooked food and, you know, raid the fridge and that. But for me it wasn't really an option because I live like 2.5 hours away from Nottingham. So my mum didn't go to uni, my dad didn't really go to uni. He went for like a little while, but he stayed at home and commuted, and I think he said that he found it hard to make friends. So I suppose as long as you account for that and you know that you're going to have to make an extra effort to make friends, and if people are having prees, for example, or like a get together after class in the evening, you've got to account for, could you arrange to stay over in someone else's flat and then come home the next day? I feel it's fine, you've just maybe got to plan it a bit more and you'll still be able to make friends really easily. It's probably a really good option for some people, especially like if I had the option I probably would have stayed at home, because it's nice to have your own home environment and feel comfortable at home. Whereas I feel like halls, they're not very comfortable. Like, they're just quite public, and if you're a private person, it's not the most comfortable setting to be in. How do I meet people who don't just want to drink and dance in sweaty rooms? Societies, that's all I've got to say. Societies, societies, societies. What tip would you give freshmen? I would say don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't put too much pressure on the experience. Like, I know that it's bigged up to be like the best experience ever, and for some people it is, don't get me wrong, like it is a really cool experience. It's a different experience for a lot of people, and for some it is the time of their lives, but just don't big it up too much and then you can't be disappointed. I feel like that's a quote from Jacqueline Wilson or Tracy Beaker or something. If you have no expectations, you can't be disappointed. So true. So something that took me a while to realise, you don't have to be friends with everyone. Like, some people, there's nothing wrong with them, you don't dislike them at all, but you're just not on the same wavelength and your humour's different, or you just don't vibe, and that's fine. Like, don't force it. I think just don't stress yourself out, don't force it, you'll be fine. And if you're not fine, it's only 3 or 4 years, or if you're a medical student, a bit longer. And the last question is, what was the hardest thing? And I think the hardest thing was just the loneliness. Like, it frickin' sucked. Because like every day like merges into the next, you have no reason really to get up in the morning. It sounds really depressing, and it was depressing, but life does go on. I think that's something to take away from this video. Like, even if it is a cruddy time, life does go on, things will get better, and yeah, just try and make the most of it if you can, and if you can't, it is what it is, and everything's temporary. It's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. So yeah, those are my words of pearly wisdom that I promised you. And this is my makeup. I actually haven't done a winged liner today. A little bit of tinted lip balm and a little bit of Fenty gloss bomb. In terms of these brushes, I like them. They perform really well. I think my favourites are the blending brushes. I do love a blending brush. Not as good as my 100% pure brush, but probably also not as expensive. I did look up this set and I think it retails for about like the dollar equivalent of £50. So actually a similar price, a bit cheaper than Zoeva, but a similar kind of price. I think you can get a vegan brush set from Zoeva for £60. So not that much less expensive. These definitely feel lighter, like they're a lot lighter than the Zoeva brushes. I don't know how well these are going to wash, I can't comment on that, but they performed really nicely. I did really like this brow brush. I feel like it's not quite as hard as I would like in a brow brush. I usually use this one by Studio by Superdrug, and it's just a bit more dense and a bit harder, so it's a bit easier to use, but I like the effect I've got on my eyebrows. I quite enjoy my makeup today. My verdict on the brushes, they're pretty good. My verdict on the palette, it's pretty good. My verdict on uni, not so good. But yeah, that's my life advice, my reviews. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys.